My Career podcast. Today we are at the Enterprise M3 Careers Hub in Basingstoke, and I am joined by a team of lovely individuals from Fujitsu. We're going to be talking today about Fujitsu as an employer of apprentices from an employer perspective, and then we're going to be hearing from the apprentices here about their experiences. I'd like to start with you, David, if I may.
Okay.
Could you tell us a little bit about Fujitsu as an organisation and the type of apprenticeships that they have on offer?
Yeah, certainly. So Fujitsu is a Japanese-owned company. It's an ICT company with a global reach. We have around 130,000 employees across 50 plus countries. In the UK and Ireland, I think our workforce is around 15,500. And we provide products, services and solutions across multiple work areas, so retail, finance, local government, UK governments. As with most large ICT companies, junior talent and apprenticeships are very, very key to our business, not only to sustain our business, but also to develop and make good progression, making sure that we are cutting edge.
Yeah.
In terms of the apprenticeships that we offer, we offer a wide range from business administration, software development, data analyst, digital marketing. There's a whole wide range there that we offer across all of our accounts.
Okay, that's lovely. And so it sounds to me like there are roles whether you are kind of like creative, business or techie, so it's a nice broad mix.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You are based in the Basingstoke office, and another one of your kind of like regional offices is also in Bracknell.
Yeah.
So can you give us an idea of like the opportunities and the types of business that operates out of those offices in our region here, sort of that takes in Hampshire and Berkshire?
Certainly. So we all come from our defence and national security business, which is, as you say, based in Basingstoke with a HQ and also offices in Bracknell. In terms of the services that we provide a lot of software development apprenticeships, a lot of business administration, providing services and solutions to our customers, which are predominantly UK government. So within that space, there'll be a wide range of opportunities for apprenticeships.
Right, lovely. And we are joined by three of the apprentices for Fujitsu today. So I'd like to start with you, Kimberly, if I may, because you are currently in the middle of your level 3 apprenticeship at Fujitsu. So could you sort of explain maybe where you went to college, what A-levels you studied, and then tell us a little bit about the apprenticeship that you're studying at the moment, please?
Yeah, sure. So I went to Queen Mary's College, which is in Basingstoke. So I did economics, business and media. The business was a BTEC, so I had that idea of coursework anyway.
Yeah.
And what happened was I was doing a part-time job at Tesco's at the same time, and I've seen people go to university and haven't gotten a job because of experience.
Yeah.
And I thought, why don't I get a job where I can get experience and a qualification? And I've seen ones that started in September, so after my A-levels I could finally go on and move on to the next step. And as much as it was a bit of a sideways move, doing a level 3, it's, I think, in the long run, and if we're going to invest in the future, it's going to be more beneficial. So
you're doing a level 3 business admin apprenticeship at Fujitsu. So what does your working week look like?
So we have a workshop where we will do our lesson once a month every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month.
Yeah.
So if I did that, I would have half a day on the Friday where I'll do my apprenticeship work. But when I don't have the workshop, I'll have a full day of doing my apprenticeship work, so all my projects and coursework that I'll be doing.
And how do you find like balancing the work and your apprenticeships or study?
Hit and miss. I think it's mainly when you have to get into the routine of it. I think after a few months you'll be like, oh right, okay, you finally picked up what you'll be doing. You understand your workload a lot more compared to when when you first started, and once you're in this routine, you're like, okay, this means I have this day, maybe I can put something in on a Thursday, maybe for an hour, because you know that you have that free time. So
So you just have to be quite organised with your time.
Yeah, essentially. I think time management's quite a key thing, but obviously it just comes with your role. So once you find out what you do or how long it takes for a task, I think, like you said, when you have that free time or a free moment, you can do bits and bobs here.
Okay,
so.
Excellent. And Anisha, so you studied a apprenticeship at Fujitsu and you actually finished now and are in a permanent role there. But maybe can you tell us what you studied at college, where you studied, and then your process to sort of like from studying A-levels to where you are today, because you're 21 now, aren't you?
Yes, that's okay. Right. So I went to Alton College and I studied English language, politics and law.
Okay.
And it was during COVID times, so I was released from college. I didn't actually take my A-level exams.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, oh, I don't know what I want to do now, and I need to just go and get a job. And I always knew I wanted to do an apprenticeship because I knew university wasn't for me. And I was kind of like, well, I'd like the experience and to be paid for what I'm doing rather than be paying them to do it.
Yes, okay.
So I looked online for apprenticeships, and I originally actually applied for one in digital marketing.
Okay.
And went through the process for that, and then they basically said that they weren't going to offer that apprenticeship anymore, so I was given an interview with a couple of people in defence for their roles that they had open. Interviewed for them and then got to choose, luckily, which one I wanted to do. So I chose to go and do the business admin one in what's called the practice support team, which is basically admin to the various different teams within defence in Fujitsu. And I went in as the assistant to the head of defence, which was quite a big thing. It was quite funny. I met him in the office and he went to shake my hand, and my manager was like, actually you can't touch her because it was still COVID times.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, really sorry, I can't do that. So yeah, kind of got thrown in the deep end because the lady that I was taking over from went on maternity leave, so it was like, you're going to pick up from her now. But a great opportunity because I was straight in with the senior leadership team.
Gosh.
So made those connections straight away. Did that for about a year and then was a bit like I need a bit more of a challenge. So moved over to where the rest of my team sat in practice support, helping the various different people to do their resourcing. Did that for about a year whilst I finished my qualification. Got a distinction happily, so put in all of the work and luckily it paid off. So yeah, finished off my apprenticeship, then thought about where I wanted to go next, which ended up being governance. So I went into the bid team, kind of doing bid reviews and taking minutes for that, which was really interesting. You get to see the other side and where business comes in, which was great. And then a position to open up as manager for the team where I started my apprenticeship, and I thought that's what I want to do. Went for it, not thinking with my experience that I would get it, and luckily I did.
Wow. So you went from apprentice to manager in the space of less than a year.
Yeah.
Which is a great story, isn't it? And obviously you did a great, you really impressed the team when you were working in that role to give you that kind of like senior role so quickly after. So that's amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
And Adam?
Yes.
Hi, Adam. So you, I believe, are studying a degree apprenticeship at Fujitsu.
Yeah.
So, but you're not from round here originally. You're from London, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm from London, and I'm same boat as Anissa. So A-levels got canned because of COVID, which was a saviour, to be fair.
What were you studying?
So I was studying maths, biology, and chemistry. So I was initially going to go into medicine.
Okay.
But then I gave up medicine for this opportunity, essentially, because it just seemed better in terms of you get experience, you get paid, and then there's no debt as well, which is a huge relief.
Okay. And what's the name of the degree apprenticeship that you're studying?
So it is a digital technology solutions degree, and my role is I'm a tester as an apprentice, basically.
Okay, so you didn't actually have kind of like computer science or IT skills to come into a role that sounds quite techy?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I did GCSE IT,
Okay.
but that's essentially just like how to use Excel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to be fair, that's kind of what you need a lot of in business.
Yeah.
But that was essentially it. So like, I think anyone can pick up the skills. I think it's definitely the mindset you have. So I think I probably don't fit into as much of a software developer, but what I am doing right now, I definitely can pick that up quite easily.
Okay.
After doing it for a long time.
And so you were in London and you applied for this role in Basingstoke.
Yes.
So what did you relocate down here then? How has it worked, and like what's your working week look like with your study and working?
Yeah, so it was obviously a big move. My mum was a bit disappointed. So I essentially moved from home down to Basingstoke. I got like a private house share
Okay.
to start off with, and I've been in a few, and I've really settled in the one I like now.
Okay.
But that was very much a process of talk to the other apprentices on the course, because you do meet them and you get
Yes.
introduced by them. And like, do you want to share a house with them and stuff? See what works out. And I just went the route of I'm just going to get my own kind of room, share a room,
Yeah.
and then basically just stayed that route essentially, moving
Yeah.
down.
And so were we still in COVID then when you started your degree apprenticeship? That must have been a
so
bit of a
2020.
challenge. Right.
Yeah, so everything kind of uni was online, and then I came into work about once a month type of thing. But then
Wow.
I changed roles, and then I was in like 4 days a week essentially.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and my working week is essentially when it's uni term time. 1 day a week is solely for uni. Like, you go off to uni,
Yeah.
you learn, you do all your lectures and everything.
Mhm.
You come back clueless and try and learn everything else. And then it's nice because they give you a half day study day on Friday.
Okay, so when you've been, you can then kind of like try and let that all sort of like settle in and work
Yeah.
on your sort of uni tasks. Because it's
Exactly.
quite a juggle, surely, to be working essentially pretty much full time.
Yeah.
So you're at University of Winchester, is that right?
Yeah, that's
So
right. That's
travel
right.
down to Winchester 1 day a week, study, bring it all back.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find that balance?
It's definitely a hard balance to hit. And I don't think anyone has mastered it, because uni, they want 10 hours a week per module. You got 4 modules. That's essentially, they want 40 hours from you on top of your own work.
Yeah.
So it's very much a game of, so what do I prioritize and what do I get to first, and then you move on with that. It's definitely a continuous learning journey. I have seen myself get better through the years,
Yeah.
but it starts rough.
Does
and then,
it?
and then you keep going, yeah.
Yeah, because like on paper, like getting a degree apprenticeship sounds amazing, doesn't it? Because you are getting paid, and normally like a really kind of like pretty respectable salary to when you're 18 years old. You are getting all that hands-on experience within the workplace, and then your employer, Fujitsu, are paying for your degree. So it's like happy days. But maybe what people don't see is like the amount of hard work that goes into that, like juggling all of that.
100%.
And it's important, I guess, that you have a mentor and a manager, Teresa here, who can support you through that. How has that been sort of like? Has it been quite important to have that mentoring available to you?
Yeah, I think Fujitsu is pretty big on giving you mentors and like buddies as well.
Yeah.
So a buddy is more kind of a person who's on your course and they've gone through it with you.
Okay.
And then a mentor is someone who will look for your like career prospects, kind of what you're doing in your day to day, any other questions you have about like business as well.
Yeah.
And those two combined together is like, it's a really good team to have around you, and like I couldn't have got anywhere without them, like for sure.
Oh.
Yeah, and I would say as well with apprenticeships, one of the things is as well, so I interviewed for medicine. Medicine is about 10% acceptance rate on average.
Yes.
Mine was, I remember I calculated with the day, it was about 1.2% acceptance rate. So it's a lot harder to get into, and obviously it's a lot more work with degree apprenticeship, but I think it's definitely worth it. And with Fujitsu giving all the support and everything, it was just like a no-brainer for me to take it over a normal degree, essentially.
Okay. And actually, so just sort of touching on that a little bit, like, were your parents expecting you to go to university?
Yes, essentially.
Yeah.
I think.
And how did they feel about you sort of saying, I'm going to take slightly alternative route?
Yeah, I think my dad was kind of all for it.
Yes.
Because he kind of recommended me like to look at other things during COVID, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
My mum was definitely, she needed a bit of convincing, and we definitely talked to her and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think she only really got it a year after, like, okay, it's a decent opportunity kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
but,
because that's quite hard sometimes, isn't it? Parents can be quite influential on, where they want you to go, and I hear that quite a lot. And therefore, a young person has to be quite brave, I think, to sort of say, I'm not going to follow the traditional route. Actually, I'm really sure about what I do and what I don't want to do, and I'm going to go down this route. And yeah, I always think it's like a real credit to those that choose to sort of like follow their own path rather than feel like they've got to go down the path that 95% of their friends or the expectations are to go. So so it's it's great to have you guys in explaining your sort of stories today. And I just wanted to bring Teresa in here. So you manage Adam.
Yes.
Yeah. How's that? How is it managing a degree apprentice?
Well, to be honest, for me as well, it's been a learning curve because
Yeah.
I had never had any kind of apprentice to look after before. And when I was his mentor and his manager, there was quite a conflict of interest there because you've got to look after the individual, but I also have to look at it's a business. And I think the simplest way that the journey started was initially Adam came in thinking he was a student who worked.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had to change his mind to make
Yeah.
him see that no, you're an employee who is a student.
Okay. That's really good
That-
to like
that's-
make that
that's like the
differentiation.
that's
Yeah.
kind of like the basic difference.
I think that's definitely, yeah. 100%.
And over the years, it's like Kim touched on it. The time management has been the biggest thing, and I think that's for me to learn as well as for him to learn as an apprentice to allow him not to get over pressured in the workplace and with his study, but also teach him how to prioritise. Prioritisation is not something that's innate.
No,
I don't think.
you have to learn that, don't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
And using a calendar.
Yeah,
that
that's
was
still
it.
we're still
Was it?
doing that.
You
We're
still-
still
is
doing
that work in
yeah.
progress?
Yeah.
It's things that I think who've been in the workplace for longer, take for granted, and have to learn that actually, no, he wouldn't have had all of that when he was at school. He would have been given a little timetable
Yeah, and that's
that
it.
told him where he had to be and when he had to be there.
Absolutely.
And now he had a bit of flexibility, but
Yeah.
he's nearly finished, and
Yeah. So you've got one
he's
more
a really
year.
great team member.
Oh,
Definitely.
thank you.
Oh, that's great. And so you've got one more year left.
Yes.
And Anisha, you have finished, and I think it's quite interesting. Like you're 21 now, and so I'm guessing that you have got friends who you were studying your A levels with, who have probably just finished their degrees. How do you feel as someone that took the alternative path when you look at, like, I guess they're applying for graduate jobs now and you are very secure and managing a team? Like, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like you missed out on the university experience, or do you think, I'm really happy with how this has gone?
Yeah, so at no point in my journey have I wished that I went to university. I've had two friends that have dropped out of university. One of them then went and did an apprenticeship.
Okay.
And then my friends that have continued seem to not really know what they're doing now. And also have no idea what I'm doing. So when they're on holidays, they'll message me at like 2:00 on a Monday and be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm working." And then they'll be like, "Do you want to do something tomorrow?" And it's like, I'm working. I have so many days of annual leave a year, and I'm not using them to sit with you and do nothing.
Yeah.
They just have no idea, and they've got this debt, and even though they've done a course, they still don't know what they want to do with their career. They might want to go and do a master's, but then they don't really know what they're going to do after that. And then, one of my friends wants to be a teacher, and she's then got to do more studying to go and do that. And I'm happy with where I am.
Yes.
And even though I didn't go and do a degree, I don't feel that that's going to restrict me in my career at all.
No. Do you think there's a benefit to being in a large organisation like Fujitsu where there are lots of opportunities basically within the business?
Yeah, when I finished my level 3, I went and spoke to various different people within the organisation and asked them whether they thought I should go and do a degree, and they were all like, no.
Yeah.
And I think my the way I've proved myself and the connections that I've made are going to be more beneficial for me than something that says that I can potentially do something on a piece of paper.
Absolutely, it's a really informative view to take about the value of those 4 years where you've been working, 3 years where you've been working in the business, and all those skills and that knowledge that can be sort of transferred within the business. And David, I guess like from an employer's perspective, you know, when you've invested in these young people, you know, you want to carry on nurturing them, don't you? You want to keep them in the business and give them opportunities.
Absolutely. Like I said at the start, I think, you know, a business like Fujitsu, like any large ICT organisation, you know, investing in junior talent for the future is what we should all be about, really. You know, and I think the apprentices and degree apprentices we got here today is a fantastic example of how Fujitsu nurture individuals once they come into the business. And particularly in defence, we have what we call a gap community. So all of our apprentices, degree apprentices and graduates, they get together as a single community, and they offer support to each other. They do networking, and as Nanisha said, it's all about kind of, you know, picking up networking opportunities. And with a company like Fujitsu, there is, you know, multiple opportunities that you can then kind of sort of feed out into. So, I think, you know, personally speaking, I think our Fujitsu's future is really bright when we've got people like we have here today, in terms of, you know, coming through into the business and making sure that we are, you know, sort of at the top end of our game, really, in terms of delivering what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, we're hoping that there'll be young people in school and college who'll be listening to this, and parents as well. So if they kind of thought to themselves, okay, like, you know, I'm within this region, I'd be interested in finding out a bit more about apprenticeships that are available at Fujitsu. Where would they go to find them? And also, you know, can you tell us a little bit maybe about the application process? Because it's very different to filling in a UCAS form and you know, applying to uni, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
certainly. Yeah.
What would you know, where are the opportunities, and how would you secure a role?
So I think the first thing to say is, obviously, being an ICT company, you know, technology is our key business. But however, as demonstrated here today, you don't have to be a software developer or a data analyst to be in Fujitsu. Like all big organisations, there's lots of the you know, kind of the foundations of the business are you know, business admin support and that kind of area. So if you're not sort of technically minded, don't be put off with Fujitsu. I guess is the first thing to say. And certainly in terms of the application process, and I'm sure our people here today can kind of talk a bit more in detail, but essentially it's the Fujitsu website. There's an early careers portal within the website, and there's a list of opportunities there from an apprenticeship perspective. And the idea is you find a particular role, and then it's an online process. So submitting your CV, then there's some I think there's some psychometric tests that they take. And then there's like an assessment centre which is online, and then you go through an interview stage. So that's, very broadly speaking, that's kind of what it looks like. But I'm sure one of our apprentices here can kind of tell you about the experience that they've had with that.
Yeah. So Kimberly, you were the person who's most recently sort of been through that process, and you know, it's not just like finding like a part-time job, is it? When you rock up and hand them your CV, this is quite a long process. So you have to have your wits about you a little bit to get through the process. How did you find it?
So it was all right, really. I think it was a bit of a waiting game, but I think that's obviously because of the amount of applicants going through. I remember, I think it was like February or March time where I was looking for apprentices, because I was like, well, I don't like exams, I'd rather do coursework, I'd rather go into an apprenticeship now rather than uni. So I honestly searched up apprentices starting in September business, and then it came up with Fujitsu, and then I went on the government website, and when I went on the government website there were so many on there, and then Fujitsu piqued my interest. I'm local to Basingstoke office, so I was like, okay, ticking all the boxes. So I went on the Fujitsu page where I could apply, and I did like David said, you do like a bit of a questionnaire sort of thing. You had these questions where it's like different scenarios, what's the outcome, what would you do, and then I went through that, and I think maybe the month later they asked oh, would you like to do an assessment centre? And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fun, interesting. What is that?
Yeah.
So within this time, I've applied elsewhere as well. So I've been to one assessment centre already. So I had a bit of an idea.
Yeah.
But thankfully Fujitsu gave you out a bit of a timetable where it's like a team building activity. You have a 3-minute presentation interview at the end. They give you a particular time slot. So it sounds a bit daunting at first, and obviously preparing it.
Yeah.
But like as any interview or anything, as long as you be yourself and you know what you want to say and you have the right words, you've researched where you want to go, then there's no reason why you wouldn't get it, really. Okay. So so I think at first when it says, why do you want to work in this business, and you do the 3-minute presentation, I was just like, oh, that's a good question. Oh gosh. But you definitely need to reflect on yourself and how where you want to go afterwards. But I think it was a really intense a bit, but it was quite a nice experience, because you also see other candidates around you applying in the same role, and they're probably feeling exactly the same. And then when they do come in the business as you as well, because I've had one that was in the assessment centre, I was like, oh, I know you, I was like, you're in my interviews, and like, I was like,
made it.
Exactly. I was like, congratulations, because you recommend other people as well, and it's like, oh, how did you find it? They're like, oh my gosh, I was like, you're all in the same boat, so it's really, really nice. But Anisha was in my assessment centre during like Q&As at the end, so you get a bit of an idea when you do if you do get accepted, you see what it's like to be in the business. All that crazy stuff.
Oh, so that's really nice. So Anisha, you were actually sort of able to share your apprenticeship experience with Kimberly when she was applying, and I bet that was quite nice, wasn't it? Because you feel like, because you've had like a a really successful sort of journey, haven't you? And do you feel it's quite nice to be able to sort of like, share that and inspire other young people?
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to share it and to meet the people that are wanting to come into the business and almost, go, this is what you could do if you apply yourself and if you're successful. And I think it motivates them, because you speak to them just before they're going into their interview. So you're kind of giving them that reassurance, like, I was where you were.
Yeah.
I've got through that. And you can exactly do the same. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And Adam, I imagine it's quite a competitive process. So when you were applying for the degree apprenticeship, did you apply to other companies, or were you successful in your first one? Because sometimes you have to kind of have a couple of knockbacks, don't you? A bit of resilience. 100%. So what, maybe you could sort of say what happened with you?
So mine, I think my journey is pretty similar to Kimberly. Basically, it was my dad woke me up one morning, was like, just apply, you don't know what's going to happen. So I went to a website called like ratemyapprenticeship.com. It's like a big orange website, you'll know when you see it. And there were just loads of stuff there. And I just applied to like 30 different places or something.
Did you? Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was a busy day.
Oh, maybe it was like a student day. Yeah.
Didn't leave your room.
Yeah. So it was like, just send off your CVs and stuff. And it was essentially like, it was like a stage like 1, 2, 3, 4 in Fujitsu. It's like, send off your CV, you get an online interview, you do a little questionnaire, and then also you get your final like interview day where you got the 3 stages. So it's that team building where you work as a team. It's that presentation where you have made a presentation for 3 minutes, you say it, and then you got a one-on-one interview.
Wow.
And I will say about that process as well, if you mess up in one of them, you got the other 2 to fall back on.
Okay.
Because I think I didn't do too well in the team building one, because I maybe like wasn't able to argue my point, but the other 2 I think I smashed, just because I was able to prepare, and then the person interviewing me is the one who hired me, so so you
obviously smashed up.
Yeah.
But that's really good advice, though, to be honest, because you know it's like we all have different strengths, and and then there's some areas that we might not be quite so good at, so like not to beat yourself up and think, oh, that's it, like that bit didn't go well, actually, and I think what I've picked up on is like the preparation 100%. Is so important,
that
isn't
research
it?
that Kimberly was talking about as well,
Make sure like the company like you are applying to work at, because you and like understand their business and their philosophy. It's really important, isn't it? Not to be complacent, I guess.
100%, and know your strength a little bit. So in that presentation, you show what knowledge you have and stuff like that. But they'll also see your attitude as well, and like your mindset, and like if they want to work with you, essentially, is what they're figuring out.
Yeah, attitude is
Yeah.
really important as an
Yes,
employer. Because sometimes we focus so much on qualifications
Yeah.
within education, and then this whole kind of like attitude side within the classroom gets left behind a bit, doesn't it? Which, if you've got the right attitude, employers say
Certainly,
that
yes,
you
yeah.
can teach them the skills and the knowledge,
Yeah.
but it's about young people with the right attitude. Would you agree?
Certainly, yeah. I think in my time in Fujitsu, which has been quite long and varied, when it comes to kind of bringing on new individuals in the company, sometimes yes, it's good to have qualifications, but as you say, it's really about the kind of the attitude and the mentality of the individuals. And if there's you can have someone who's really kind of skilled, qualified, but if they don't have that kind of sort of flair to kind of want to learn and develop and grow, then you kind of go, well, actually, yes, you may be well qualified, but are you really qualified for the business? And I think that's really key. I think sometimes if you get both, then that's brilliant. But if you've got one that's really got the attitude and the drive and desire, and certainly in my experience, again, working with apprentices, and it's no disrespect to graduates, but the apprentices seem to have a bit more desire.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's because they haven't done all of that kind of studying, and sometimes there is a sense of a kind of sort of self-worth after a degree. When you've got a degree, it's like, well, I've got a degree, so therefore I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Whereas, again, no disrespect to apprentices, but they have a lower level of kind of, well, I'm just learning, I want to learn, I've got much more of a desire. Does that make sense? It's kind of,
I think it's kind of like having that hunger to prove
absolutely, yes,
that actually I'm going to be equally, if not more successful,
yes,
by following this route. And then when you start making progress down that pathway, and you can have that confidence to go, like, I'm doing well here, and I'm confident in my future, and I'm confident that I can be successful in the future. So it's like, there doesn't have to be one single pathway to be successful. There are pathways that can suit individuals and their skills and their talent and their passions. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick you on the spot here, but like, what one piece of advice would you give to a young person sitting there studying GCSEs, studying A-levels on their BTEC course? I'm going to start with you, Kimberly.
All right. No, that's okay. And so it's life of work and studying is flexible. So I wasn't a big fan of exams. I know GCSE is very exam-based, a lot of A-levels are exam-based, but it's okay if you don't think that's suited for you. You can just work, you can do an apprenticeship, and where you can just do a few exams, but the speaking ones, so they're not as bad. It's very, very flexible out there. It's not just written in paper, this is it. There are so many ways out there, and you just need to look for them.
Okay.
So,
spot the opportunities.
Exactly.
Be curious, often we say, to young people. Yeah. Okay. Anisha?
Don't worry about what everyone else around you is doing. All of my friends went to university and they were like, why aren't you going to university? And I knew I wanted to do an apprenticeship. I helped my friends write their statements for university while I was doing my apprenticeship application, knowing I don't want to go to university, regardless of the fact that they were all trying to persuade me to do my UCAS stuff as well.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch any of that. I didn't have a UCAS account or anything. I was prepared to either get an apprenticeship or come up with a plan if I didn't. If you know that path is right for you, then choose that path.
That's great advice, and that shows real strength of character, doesn't it? Yeah. That you weren't swayed, which is an amazing skill to sort of like take with you, in your future career, isn't it? So, I think that's great advice. And Adam, what advice would you give?
I think the biggest phrase is like fake it till you make it, but you do it in the right way. It's almost like, I think people don't realise how many skills they really have. Even if you do like a Sunday job, like I used to do tutoring, but I kind of word played it to be like, I've talked to a range of different audiences. I've talked to parents. I've talked to students from like nursery to GCSE like me. I've talked to so many different people.
Yeah.
It's how you talk about your skills and how you recognise what you have. Because you have a lot. Even if you do sports, you do anything extracurricular at all, that's team building, that's all the skills you can draw upon.
Yes.
And you got to know your worth, I think.
Yeah.
And they need to know that like they're worth a lot. That's what they have
Excellent.
to offer.
And you know, sometimes we refer to that as like self-awareness. And maybe that's what, again, it's not taught in the classroom, is it, in it, but it's about knowing, taking a step back and going, actually, you know, what am I good at here, you know, and it's like having your story, isn't it? I always say, like, it's a bit like, what's your personal story, like what are you about? And sometimes you have to get other people to sort of, you know, and speak to them, you know, your friends or your family, and just be clear on what you are about, and then that can really help you, like you've said, isn't it?
100%. It's
Yeah.
just you're not marketing yourself, but you essentially
Yeah.
you essentially are.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
essentially are.
You
Yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you shouldn't be embarrassed about that. That's what it's all about, isn't it? If you,
Yeah.
if you don't,
Yeah.
if you don't sell yourself, who is going to sell you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think it's just recognizing the skills you have, 100%, because people do have skills, 100%.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
you don't know them yet. When you're in school, you're not like
Yeah.
trying to recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Teresa, anything
I-
to
I
add
just-
finally?
I just think it's you know, like David compared the graduate to the apprenticeship, and I think the key difference is an apprentice gets a chance to apply the skills they're learning
Yeah.
as they go,
Yes.
as well as obviously the attitude. But
Mm.
it's all very well doing things academically, but you don't really understand it until you have to
Yeah,
apply it
practically,
in the
right,
real
yeah.
world. And I
Yeah.
think the apprentices are having to do that at the same time as they're
Yeah,
learning it, so they
that's-
become a more rounded individual
Yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah.
who can
Agreed.
just
Mm.
progress
Mm.
in more ways because they're
Yeah.
completing the circle instead of
Yeah.
time boxing it,
Yeah.
I suppose.
And David, really valuable to the business
Yes.
going forward.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. As I said earlier, I mean, you know, all businesses need to kind of grow and develop. I mean, you know, our business is certain areas are quite an older population in terms
Yeah.
of, you know, the people there. So, you know, it's brilliant that we've got young talent that's coming through.
Yeah.
That are hopefully going to kind of, you know, sit where I'm sitting, you know, in
Yeah.
a few years' time, and with another set of apprentices. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you all today.
Thank you.
I think your stories are really inspiring, and I'm sure that they will help raise awareness of the apprenticeship pathway, the benefits to them, and inspire some of the young people who are studying in the colleges and schools in our region. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.